Welcome to Topshot NFT. I'm Jason, your host. As always, I got my big man Linux in the bottom, and today we have a special guest. We've had a big day with the Cool Cats drop, so we actually had planned to record this a little earlier. And rather than give us like a recap, let's just kind of jump right in. We've got the PlungeFather. Most of you guys that are watching this, and if you're new to TopShot, you soon will know this man. He's killing it on Twitter, providing excellent insight and a lot of comic relief and entertainment. He's making his rounds. He's making his name, but more importantly, he's a valuable part of this community. Welcome, PlungeFather.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. It's good to talk to you both, and I've been watching your videos and sort of digesting and just absorbing as much content in this community as I can. And I really appreciate everybody that's putting stuff out there in different formats. It's been a lot of fun hearing other people talk about the stuff that is interesting to you. So I appreciate having me on.
So it's kind of funny in this space, like the space-time continuum, if you will, is just so warped, and we, Linux and I got in early January, and I would kind of say you're an OG.
No.
You're not but here's the thing, like anybody that's new, we're now the OGs, right?
It's a rolling scale of OG-ness.
Yeah. When was your first pack purchase, if you will?
So less than a month ago, I think. So I think my first moment, which was an Andrew Wiggins moment, I bought an Andrew Wiggins moment. I believe it was the Monday of the 18th of January. So It was, probably like just the week before basically that massive spike. So I had some friends. I've mentioned a couple of times I'm in a sort of sports betting fantasy group, and one of the guys was in on the early beta. So he was in on it back in like September, October, and he was complaining to us in this Slack channel that we have, which is similar to, if anybody's in the Discord, it's like Slack channels, same concept, right? He was complaining that his Bam Adebayo moment from NBA TopShot was like only $500 instead of the $800 that it was before. And we're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, you guys don't know about this TopShot thing? I'm like, no, we don't know about this TopShot thing. Tell us more. So I hopped in, and I think I told this story earlier as well, but I thought when I stepped into the fold, like there weren't any packs available. I thought like, oh, you collect things into sets and then you sell the sets. So my first thought was like, oh, I'm going to build a cool set of 2014 draft class players.
Okay.
That's what I started in on. That's why. So I got Andrew Wiggins and Marcus Smart and Shabazz Napier and
you picked a great draft year.
Right. Like Nikola Jokic, I think, was the 45th pick. And so I started to put Spencer Dinwiddie was in that group. Bogdan Bogdanovic was in that group. So like starting to put these players together, Eric Bledsoe, I think. And at one, it was right before then, like I then had some series 1 moments because they weren't all series 2. And then the packs were still available. So it was still at that point where they had that first pack drop, or at least the first pack drop of like with a lot of people. And I was able to snag 5 or 6 packs, and my buddies snagged 20. So we're, starting to build these things. And that was the coolest part of this whole thing was, oh man, you were just able to buy packs and crack them with your friends. Yeah. And it's been so frustrating in the last few weeks. And I'm still very bullish. I'm still like trying my best to stay positive and be solutions oriented and all that. But it is exceptionally frustrating to like have just a little taste of what that was like. And then over the last 3 weeks been like, really struggling to sort of get your hands on these things that are so fun to open and collect. It's just like, it's exciting, but at the same time, like really challenging. So yeah, that's sort of been my last month.
So let's just let's kind of jump around. So today was the Cool Cats drop. We've been kind of waiting for it. Did you complete the first Cool Cats challenge with the Luca?
We did.
Okay.
Yeah, we did.
So are you kind of all in on the Master Cool Cats challenge?
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's not cost prohibitive to do so. I think, I am not someone that has like massive amounts of expendable income, and I talk about this a lot, like I don't have other fun money to like translate into this, which I think a lot of people that are able to sort of swing their stick around on this stuff do. You're right. It's sort of for most people, it's not just like I'm going to put this on a credit card and float it, or if they can. But the big money usually comes in from, I've got this other crypto asset that I can translate and convert into this other crypto asset, and I'm going to diversify my crypto portfolio, from Bitcoin to or ETH and I don't have that. I wasn't a crypto head before this or anything like that. So there's not a whole lot of wiggle room that I have to be able to like hump up that stuff. So I sort of have to build my stack from within, from the money that I put in initially, and that I've some sort of pooled with some friends for various different things. But yeah, we committed to doing the Cool Cats with Luca. I mean, with the Luca going like this,
yes,
it's tempting. I mean, I think I saw it at what, 17. The last I looked was like $1,700 or something like that, which, I mean, that's even from earlier today. It was like 12, 13, 14. I think saw it at 14 this morning. So, I mean, it's hard to have strong hands and hold on to something like that is going to be the bottleneck for this bigger thing down the line, when that could then, I could do a lot with 17 or $1,800 in Dapper bucks right now.
Buys a lot.
So it's hard.
So Pete, let me ask you this.
Yeah,
I'm big on, I have friends who call me and say, hey, I heard about this TopShot thing. In your opinion, what's a top EV move for a person just joining the space, looking to gain some momentum and trying to, claw their ranks into this whole machine? What do you suggest?
So I think it's really important to not just look at what other people are doing and then assume that that's like the only way to do it. I think there's so many angles to play, and finding an edge is a lot harder now than it was 4 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago. So I think I would tell everybody, like, don't walk in the door expecting 3x, 4x, 5x like right off the bat, right? It takes time, and it takes patience to get your feet set with things, to really understand the dynamics of how things move and how quickly they move, and to also recognize kind of market behavior that is incongruous with what makes sense, because there's some like leading indicator things that you start to pick up on the longer that you're here. There's like, okay, that follows a pattern, or conversely, like, that's way off from what I expect. Something's going on here. And it's okay to trust your gut and like stay away from something like that if you don't understand it. One of the things that Arsenic said on the First Mint show on Friday that I was a part of, that I thought was like, and Arsenic's OG, been around for a really long time. He's been on this quest to get
the Cody Zellers.
1,000 Cody Zellers, right? Which is hilarious. But one of the things he said is get as many packs as you can, like packs. And I know that's a big frustrating point to say, hey, new people, like, spend money on packs when there aren't available. But that to me is like almost right now immediate EV, right? Like, if you can get your hands on a Cool Cats pack, or you can get your hands on a base pack even, like, they're not at the point yet where they're EV negative. They're at the point where you start to get little pieces, right? So like, you crack a Kawhi. That was something I got in my Cool Cats pack today. Or you crack a Curry, or you crack a LeBron, or maybe you luck out and get a low serial number of something. And then you can start to feel out like, okay, I have assets that I can then flip for other assets, or I can trade to try and find this thing. But right now there's so much information and there's so much movement that it's really tough to point at a single thing or a single tranche of things and say, this is going to be value. Because that might change a day from now, 2 days from now, 4 days from now. It's a lot easier to say, all right, let me be comfortable with the purchases that I'm making, try some things out, see where they go, and not, put all of your nest egg in all at once, because you might be putting it in at the top, or you might be putting it in at the bottom, right? Like for all those people that bought things on January 26th, when this thing was going like this, that's put all 10, let's say it's $10,000. If you put $10,000 in on that day, like you're hurting right now. But if you put in just a little bit and you saw it start to go, like you can hold back a little bit of the remainder that you have. So I would say, it's don't throw it all in at once, like throw pieces of it in if you have something to throw in, like, and sort of feel it out before committing the entirety of your assets that you can allocate to it, so that you can get your feet wet and you feel really comfortable and confident in what you're doing.
How confident do you feel in like base set 2? Because I'll take you back. When we first got in and base set 1 was just sitting there, like, and
just ready to be snapped up.
I opened up so I actually still have the first 3 moments I got. Well, actually, I think it was like 10, but like there was 3 moments in particular. It was a Cameron Payne, a Buddy Hield, and a Jordan Clarkson base set 1. And I remember looking at those and just thinking, this is the dumbest thing. Like these guys are terrible. And then they're like $1 to now those 3, it's like $150, going for it. Do you believe? Do you have faith in?
I think the Cameron Payne.
Huh?
I don't think it'll do the same.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say I don't think it'll do the same because just supply, right? And
of course,
base 1, I think a lot of the this was the older edition thing. Like they got a big bump from that. I don't know that is going to hold long term, like long term. But I think you'll see variations or like a scaled version of that with with the Series 2 stuff. But it's funny that Cameron Payne, I think I sold or I gave one of those away on Friday, where I for my 1,000, I got 1,000 followers. I was like, I should give something away for this. And I think I bought a Series 1 Cameron Payne. It was $27. So your dollar card is, 27, or let's say that you cracked a pack that was $9. So it's that's what, 9X?
Well, I mean, it's better than that because how many cards were in a pack back then? Was it 10 that were in a base set 1 pack when we first did it?
You tell me, Lennox. I don't know.
Yeah, I forget.
It was definitely like at least 5, but I think it was 10 because when it dropped to 3, I was like, whoa. But
yeah, what a jip.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's
so
go ahead, Lennox.
Well, that's why the Cool Cats is such a kind of a good value. Like it's, it's $5 more, but you're going to pull a card that's instantly at least $100. And then the base sets, are a couple bucks too, but you're getting 5 cards. I mean, it's a great deal. I think there was 70,000 plus people in line today.
Yeah. I got my pack. I was 27,000 in line. And then when I finished and got it, which took me a little over an hour and 15 minutes. So it was like 75 minutes to get through all of that. And then I hopped back in line and I was 54,000. So there were 54,000 more people in line after the 27. I don't know how many of those were, duplicate people of jumping back in, but I said this the other day too, like, even if it's half of that, like if you assume wives, girlfriends, your dog accounts, right? Like, even if it's half of that and it's 35,000 people instead of 70, or it's 25,000 individuals instead of 50, like that's a lot. That's a lot. And even if, I think the Crypto Slam numbers that I looked at today, you've got 5,000 to 7,000 people on a given day buying 5,000 to 7,000 people on a given day selling, a lot more in the last couple of days with the gift because it's free money, right? But I think it's 52,000 accounts that own a moment or something like that. I think it was that was the number that I own, or like 52,000 wallets, I think is the technical term for that. But that's a lot, and it's a lot more than it was when I started even a month ago. And I assume it's way more than what you guys saw when you started, even just a few weeks before that.
It's amazing how much luck plays in this space. So I have various NFTs from various projects, and I follow. I saw the sale. Hey, there was a sale for $37,000 from this NFT TopShot thing. And I'm like, you know what? Let me check it out. So I randomly bought a couple $100 in packs just to kind of see what the whole
Yeah,
fuss was
get your feet
about.
wet.
And I was too lazy to actually sell the dollar moments because I'm like, I don't have the time to click this, do that, do that.
Right.
And it's amazing just the time involved, right? How people who got in even 2 weeks before, how big that time jump was. But randomly, something that caught my attention that I thought was rather funny. I got to ask you a question. And the question is, what is the largest land animal by mass that you could take in hand-to-hand combat to the death in a room the size of a high school gymnasium, wearing only what you're wearing right now? And the animal also knows it has to kill you. I was
Yeah,
intrigued. I got to know the answer to that question.
Yeah, it's a Galapagos tortoise. No sweat. No sweat.
That's it. Easy.
Yeah, I mean, it's got very little range of motion. It's not particularly fast. It's very heavy
It is very
relative
heavy.
to the like damage that it can actually impact. And also like the claws on a high school gym floor, like not great purchase. So I think I could take it, no problem. I just find some soft spots and just start going to town.
It just flip it upside down. Right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I mean, I'm not a big like gym guy. I can't see, but I don't hit the gym. I got kids. I don't have time. I don't know that I could actually like tire flip a Galapagos tortoise. I'm not sure if I could do that. But I imagine that's what it would be like. But trying to do that. So I would say like a reasonably sized Galapagos tortoise is probably the answer that I would give. Yeah, and if you couldn't tell from that question, I posted it to Wade's, but like that's something that my group of friends has debated countless times over and over again. And the one time that someone comes into the fold and says giraffe, that guy's never living it down, right? Like, oh, you think you can take a horse? Like, good luck. You ever seen a horse kick somebody? Like, no way, not a chance, buddy.
So it's interesting. If it's a male Galapagos turtle, it's 500 pounds, but if it's a female, it's only 250. So. If you go with the female, then I think you've got.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you have to assume like a reason, like the middle of the pack of the species, right? Like you can't just be like, oh, it's going to be the buffest tortoise or like the weakest tortoise. You have to get like a reasonably, yeah. I hear a lot of people that give the answer of like a domestic dog of some sort, which is way too morbid for me. So I can't go that route. But I think that's a. Yeah, Galapagos tortoise is an unoffensive and relatively well accepted answer. So like Lennox, you seem like a big guy. You're a bit much bigger than I am, I think, at least as far as I can tell. And Jason has mentioned a few times, like on the pod. What's the answer for you?
Well, I'm 6'8". Right now, probably 290 pounds. So I'm a big dude. And I have in my mind, I think I'm tougher than what I actually am. Okay. So, man, I think like give me even like a brown bear or something. I really
a brown bear that knows it has to kill you. Okay, that knows it's like Lennox, like I'm gonna kill him.
How about an adolescent brown bear? How about that?
No. Like standard adult male. Standard
no,
like that's not the biggest
adult male brown
you can't.
bear.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'll take a baby giraffe then. Yeah, of course I can kill it. Like, come on, like, gotta be standard. But I appreciate the confidence there, though.
I'm not taking an adult male bear down. That's not going to happen, obviously.
I think I guess take a horse.
Can take a horse? Absolutely not.
You don't seem very violent.
Yeah, Jason. No way.
What?
Horses are like 15 pounds. They're huge.
I just have.
Yeah, if it knows it has to kill you, buddy.
I don't know. Just don't go behind it.
How you gonna get? Good luck.
Yeah.
Have you seen a rodeo?
Yeah, I'm from the South.
Anyway,
that's what I said.
I appreciate the question.
So as we have new and
so that's a fun one.
I love it. I love that question. It's amazing. As we have new and more exclusive releases coming out, we'll get you more excited. Are you a metallic gold guy? Are you a hollow guy? I've heard something about the platinum ice with the auction features. What's catching your attention these days?
Yeah. Well, I haven't really divin hard into the MGLEs or the hollows yet. Again, like my stack is not that huge, so I really haven't been diving into some of that. I have found and sort of latched onto a handful of things from the past with like the run it backs. Like I think I got a Kevin Garnett and a Tony Parker that I was like we were pumped about. Like that's just cool. right? I loved KG. And I think independent of whether or not that's going to, moonshot or anything, like just cool asset to have. And I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of those, like for given players. They have to do so much catching up to get so many of the older guys moments that I just don't think there's going to be that many opportunities for guys that have already been retired to have more moments in the short to medium term, maybe longer term, but I just don't see it like being a huge part of what the Players Association wants, number one, which is a big component of this. And also what like Top Shot's about. They need to like maintain the economy, and you can hear them talk about that when they sort of deflect questions about Kobe and LeBron and some of these other major moments. It's like, yeah, of course, that would be awesome to have, but it immediately breaks the math for everything else, which they're very conscious of. You'd have to print 100,000 MJ moments in order to not break the economy relative to all the other trades that have happened up until now. Like that's just, or at least that's some of the analysis and conversation that I've heard that has resonated with me. Is like, that makes a lot of sense. But in terms of stuff that's upcoming, I think I sort of like these common pack, like sort of like common different flavors of things, right? It's cool to have something to work towards and not be sort of immediately priced out of it, right? With the MGLEs, like Joseph, he's an awesome player, but like Nurkic doesn't get me going. And some of these other guys that are part of the like challenge rewards for some of these bigger things, like, I sort of like the gamification side of things where like I'm sort of working towards something as opposed to just looking at it like a portfolio. So I'm really excited, not just about like some of those other packs that are coming out that might have some rewards that are related to them. Cool Cats is a big one. Like I'm focused there because all of these interim things are going to be sort of fun, I think, to sort of strategize around and like, okay, I'm going to try and get it here. How many packs can I get? Can I get some friends to trade with? What assets do I have that I can repurpose into some of these things? And look toward some of that stuff. But I'm also kind of jacked too about like, what does this look like from the NFT like usability side of things, like with hardcore, whenever that comes out, with the game that they have relative to what these moments are going to be purposed or like repurposed towards, or like they can be used towards. We've got a little bit of that with Swish, which I've entered a handful of times for the fantasy game every week, where you build a showcase of 5 players and then that's your fantasy lineup for the week. But I'm sort of like kind of intrigued by that and what that's going to look like in the coming weeks and months, sort of in addition to what cool drops they're going to have. So I'm just really like, LG was saying something. LG's the Luke, one of the guys on the first mint, basically, was talking about like, we've been staring at these moments, these base moments, the same roughly 135 of them for like weeks. And it's like, oh, it'd be really cool to see even just new base moments, right? Like from either newer editions of already existing players or players that don't have one or don't have one in Series 2 that had one in Series 1, that like just seeing more plays that are more recent and are a a wider breadth of the NBA and the players in the NBA would be even exciting, even if they're not like superstars, just to see more stuff when you're looking at packs or those types of things. So that's sort of what I'm sort of, I don't want to say like on the lower tier. I think it's all relative, but like, yeah, I'm sort of priced out of holos unless I was able to get one in the drop. Like I'm sort of priced out of multiple MGLEs towards a challenge, at least like with my current asset stack. Like, so I'm okay sort of playing in the shallow in a lot of ways and sort of finding creative ways to double up in particular streams or like consolidate things that I have into a bigger thing, which I think is, if I had to guess, what far more of the population in Top Shot is actually doing as compared to what gets a lot of attention visually, both in terms of coverage from a media perspective with the big monster sales and the things that people tweet out of like these massive numbers, and what people are actually doing, right? If you looked at the MGLE challenge for Steph, like 211 people out of 30,000 were able to complete it. Yeah. It's like that's such a small subset of the population in Top Shot of owners that like we're just not really playing the same game as some of these people. And that's okay. Like, it's still fun to play the other game. And I'm having a blast doing it.
Dude, what's this deal with like, not the deal, but like, what's it been like with your social media? Like, I'm going to assume that you didn't have a large presence
No,
before this. And in literally like 3 weeks, you know, like you've kind of, I can't imagine what like your ats and DMs are like. So
yeah.
is it kind of weird for you to kind of tackle it on?
Yeah, it is weird in some ways, and sort of natural in some others. I don't have a very big social media presence outside of this stuff. I've been on social media forever.
Sure.
You know, I've had a Twitter since 2010, but like 250 followers, because I don't really post things. Like, I didn't have anything that was like musings of Pete's life. I don't care. Like, I don't care to share any of that.
Yeah.
But it has been fun to sort of like figure out and start to connect some dots and to find out some stuff and put those things together and sort of share that, and it have some, you know, it resonates with people and people latch onto it and they enjoy the content in whatever way. And for me, like, it's really exciting to like help other people in some ways, because like I make tons of mistakes and most of us do. And if you can help people avoid dumb mistakes and keep them away from some of these atrocious people that are trying to take advantage of everyone else, like whether it's through shady dealings or like just disinformation, or like the get rich quick scheme stuff of like, hey, let me, you know, give me $90 for your, you know, yearly subscription to my Discord so that you can find all the hot picks. Like, don't be shelling out for that stuff. Like, you know, you're not going to join an investors club and get rich quick. Like, that guy's getting rich quick off of your your idiocy. So, you know, some of that stuff has been fun, but, you know, it is a little weird. And, you know, you sort of hinted at it with DMs and both in Discord and with Twitter. Like, you know, I'm a visible presence in a lot of ways, but I get the butler bell rung a lot. Like, ding, like there's this other conversation going on and I get buzzed in or like tagged into these things often, which I think is kind of fun. It's like, hey, what do you think, PlungeFather? Like, okay, like I'll weigh in. Like, I don't know if my opinion matters anybody more than anybody else's, but like, sure, I might as well. So it's been kind of funny. So you get a lot of that, like, okay, it's positive. I like that. But then there's, you know, a very small majority or a small minority, maybe like, I don't know, 5% of them are just like, I don't want to deal with this. Like, please stop asking me that very specific question about that very specific investment you're trying to make. Like, I can't help you. Sorry.
A little word of advice. Like, so I used to have a social media marketing company and I wrote a book. And so I have had a pretty large social presence. I wouldn't call myself an influencer, but
sure.
But I will tell you, when the first thing that you got to know is like, there's just sometimes where you just can't, you got to stop responding and like the comments and all.
Oh yeah.
I was like, my Instagram is like around 50,000-60,000.
Mm-hmm.
My Twitter is like 14 or something. But when I was really active, like the amount of people that would just, you know, like, it's just so easy for them to send you a message. And, you know, I hope, obviously our biggest goal is that this Topshot like blows up, and instead of, you know, like if there's like 200,000 active users, and, you know, the market just explodes. But as a pioneer, whether you want to be one or not, you know, you'll have to make that decision. But you're definitely known in the community, and there are, you know, it's interesting because when you kind of put your name out there, like, it holds you to a higher standard. You're a content creator now, you know, even if it's just tweets, but appearing on, you know, so with great power comes great responsibility.
Well, it's and it's funny because like I feel like you know, seeing a couple of the things that I've posted in the last couple of days that have like legitimately just straight up affected the market on something. Like, I'm so cautious of that now. Where like, I think today it was a good example of like, I saw some tweets from Gary V, right? Like Gary V, NFT, TopShot, and there was like way down threaded in there. Like somebody had asked him the thing, and then he responded and said, "Oh man, I've been I've been talking with Roham since July, which is not related to TopShot. It's related to other things too, like read between the lines, people. But then like a couple things down, it said like, I don't own any TopShots. And it was like buried in this thread. So he had confirmed like he doesn't own anything right now. Even if he's looking at it, he's probably looking at it through his manager or his brother or somebody else that is like actively engaged in some way. So then I tweeted him, I was like, can I interest you in this Obi Toppin, right? This $99 Obi Toppin, because he's a rookie. Like the rookies went like that with LaMelo. Right. He's a Knicks fan. So I was just like kind of a joking, like, hey, and I happen, in full disclosure for everybody else listening, like I have one Obi Toppin, which I bought for $60, which there was like the one rookie that I could afford at that point, other than like Jalen Smith. And I already had pulled a Killian Hayes from a pack. So like that was my rookie portfolio, was like these 3 guys or whatever. And so it was like, can I interest you in this $99 Obi Toppin? And literally in like 20 minutes, like 7 or 8 of them had been sold. And like the price went to like 120. And it was like, all right, like I'm just a random ass guy in my basement, like in between work calls, like making jokes about this shit to Gary Vee. And like, it's not a function of like jump and how high, like, you don't even have to say jump. You might just jump yourself or like imitate a jump and like everybody starts jumping. So I think caution to everyone else, like whether it's myself, whether it's you, whether it's LG at the First Mint, whether it's like Vegas Finds, whether it's the guys that own the moment, whether it's TopShot Insight, any of these people. Do your research, right? Like there's lots of fake news out there, and most of us aren't trying to like do anything nefarious in the grand scheme of things, but like make sure that you are checking your sources before you're just diving into something, because like literally it was a joke and like boom, that affected something. So it is a little weird that kind of effect happens, but it makes me just like a little gun shy on some of that stuff, and I don't want it to come across like to anyone as like I'm trying to self-promote and build up my own portfolio by like influencing other people to do that. Like that's not my intention at all. I'm not here to enrich myself on the backs of other people making bad investment decisions. Like we can all win in this. We don't have to win off of each other, which I think is a Gary Vee thing, but like, it's a very curious dynamic.
Well, that's like the Maxi with Mark Cuban and like how that skyrocketed. And when you guys were having the guy, Arsenic, about Cody Zeller, and then all of a sudden Cody's moving, and it's just, I mean, my mother always said, like, do you want to be a lemming, and it's like you have to kind of think for yourself and not, Linux and I, the show's TopShot NFT because it's not just about TopShot, but we look into other things, and I'm the worst because he'll be like, oh, I'm kind of looking at this. And I'm like, you want to go halves on it? And he's like, I didn't even tell you what it is. I was like,
Yeah. On that note, I have questions. Lennox, you mentioned earlier, sort of like you fell backwards into TopShot. Where did you come from with NFT Portfolio? What were the things that immediately before you got into TopShot were sort of your focus? And is that the same focus that you have now, or have you in the last 4 weeks sort of pivoted?
Yeah, so I would say that 70% of my portfolio is Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano. So I'm a coiner first and foremost, and I use the NFT space to diversify my cryptocurrency holdings. I guess the first thing that caught my attention, and Jason and I were talking about this today, I was like, NFT, non-fungible token. What does that mean? Digital art. Well, I have a small little art collection here. Well, where can I find it? Nifty Gateway. Okay. There's this guy named Beeple who came out. He had this series that also came with a physical component. Whatever. Let's buy one. Let's see what happens. Let's see how that goes. And I probably have purchased, I don't know, 18 or 19 pieces off of Nifty Gateway. I've done a lot of stuff on Wax. I've done some OpenSea stuff. I've done some Unstoppable Domains stuff when that first came out. I've done what else? The crypto cubes and the hash mask. So if it has some legs, it's something to take a look at. I've definitely taken a piece. I might take a big piece depending on what it is, but no, it's fascinating. And I'm kind of getting into a rhythm as to what I think has legs when it comes out and what's moving the market and how news and information and certain people and who they follow and followers and tweets and it's all
a tangled web.
Absolutely, it really is. Maybe you can help Jason and I with this because I think this is right up your alley. Jason is very much a serial number guy, and I'm not an anti-serial number guy, but man, I don't follow it as much as he does. So in a nutshell, I do believe there's value in let's say that we had a 4,000 limited edition rookie, and that 1 through 20, I very much believe is materially better than things after that. However, I'd rather have 3,999 and 3,998 than number 417. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that it matters now. Will it in a while? Remains to be seen. I think when we look at the sales data and the listing data and where those things line up relative to one another, it's actually more the curve of how serial number affects sales price is actually much tighter and in form of a slope in a graph than the listings are, because people are so scattershot with it, and it's not super easy to find the data on what sales have happened for particular serial number buckets, right? It's much easier to see what other things around your listing are listed at as compared to what other things have been sold around those price points, because you need to go to an external website to look at it. So I'll say that roughly speaking, like the hierarchy of series, very clearly serial number 1 matters the most, and then it's jersey number, and then it's the perfect score, right? The perfect score being like a 4,000 out of 4,000. There's very few sales actually that have happened for perfect scores. If there's only like 650 or 670 moments total, like you could probably count on, my hands and toes, the number of perfect scores that have been sold like in the current era, right? Like there might've been things that have happened a while back, but like in recent memory, they're so heavily priced above the typical sales price of a given moment that so many people don't know what the value actually is. So they're shied away from buying it. There's very few of those that have happened, but from a listing and like an actual sales perspective. But then you get into the top 10, and then actually, instead of it being the top 20 that matter, it seems to be that the group between like 10 and 50 matters more than the group between 50 and 100. And then the group from, or it's actually 99, because the second that you hit a third digit, it like markedly decreases. And I think, at least from my perspective, and we don't have enough sales yet to really like point out and be like, this is exactly it, because a lot of the early and lower serial number stuff is also affected by jersey number sales. So like where those things fall, like is a 30 more valuable? Well, if you remove Curry from it, yes. Right. Is a 45 more valuable? Well, if you remove Donovan Mitchell from it, yes. Right. So there's some, 23 is obviously another really weird one. 49 as well, because that's the edition size on a lot of these, like the Cosmics, 299. Right. So like some of that data gets skewed a little bit, but when I look at it, and to your point about wanting 2 of the ones way down towards the bottom as compared to, number 470 or whatever, I think there is, if not quite a double premium for like a 3-digit serial number compared to like something down below. And I think that won't matter at all, once people are past these things in the short to medium term. 2 years from now, I don't see that as a collector looking and being like, that 3998 is any different than that 470, unless it is a very special and specific serial number. So I think I lean towards where you're at, Lennox, with like, if I'm collecting longer term, I don't think it matters. If I'm looking to flip this quickly and I can find a good deal on something that is a lower serial number, and then I'm planning to sell it instead of hold it in the short to medium term, that can be a good way to look at and try and dive into some value picks for those flips. But I wouldn't look at it as those two things being substantially different for something 3 years from now.
It's interesting that you say that, because I don't know. I think as the market matures, and when I say mature, I say between 24 to 48 months out, I imagine those low serial numbers will be more valuable to the collector once more established collectors come to the space. But I guess time will be seen. Mr. Jason, would you like to pile on to your argument with the serial number?
Fair, I was not doing that. What I would do is let's just like player X for base set with like 12,000 or well, even the 15,000. Like let's say like it's $100, which now let's say actually let's do better. Let's say it's $200 and there's like 12,000 of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the floor, and that's like 11,000 or whatever. Like
so, that's like a mid-tier rookie, right?
Yeah. So if the low is 200, but I could get like within the top 1,000 for like 250. Like I'm going to do that all day, right?
Okay. So you sort of look at it like, okay, that top 500 or whatever, or top 1,000.
Yeah.
Doesn't even is worth 0.25 more. Like that's the ratchet is like a 0.25. Yeah, I don't hate that. Like
I'm not. I won't pay double for anything.
I don't think you should.
Like just to move up in serial numbers.
Yeah.
But it does. I'll give you a great example. There's a Harry Giles that I bought for $100.
Is that the base one?
No, it's the Got Game one.
Oh, it's not the one that only has like 200 of them that are actually released, like the most held back one.
No, it was a special insert. Like I think it was the Got Game series. So there was like, I want to say 150 of them, and I think the floor was $100, and I paid 150 for number 73. Like that's about the wild and crazy I've gotten for like going after a serial number. But typically, I'm looking for like if I could pay like 10 or $15 more and move up, especially like 1,000 serial numbers. Like I feel like that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
The hardest
right. And I think that's probably more like if you want to flip it, like I think that's probably more, or have any 3, 6, 12-month machinations.
Yeah.
The flipping this thing matters more now than it will 40 or 24 or 48 months. I think, Lennox, to your point though, the distillation of the top tier serial numbers, like that may even go higher and have even a higher premium than it does right now because of the to your point, the collectors that are coming into the space that value that type of stuff in a different way, where that those top 20 might be, instead of 3x, they might be 4, 5, 6, 8x of what a typical base one might be, because they're right up there in the front of the mint. So, I could see it even getting, even if the curve is not as sort of constantly up, it might flatten over time, but then get really steep towards the bottom end. But that's just speculation on my end, but that's sort of, I think, where we're headed. But now, like, I don't hate it. I wouldn't list mine for less than, or for like what the average is if I had a 3-digit serial number for a 4-digit mint. Like I would list it higher because that's what the market seems to bear.
So I'm going to ask you to put your magical wizard hat on and your thinking goggles, and where are we 24 months from now? Where's Topshot? Is Topshot successful? I mean, are we having pack releases less than 3 hours long? I mean, what do you see?
Yeah, I think so. I'm bullish on their team's ability to like handle the technical issues. I think they need help. I think that they're trying their best to onboard people to handle the demand. And I think that the stuff that I like that concerns me about where this is headed is some of the stuff that I know the least about, right? So like the actual technology that they sit on with Flow compared to what the vast majority of these other projects are on with, right? Like there's interoperability challenges with Flow as compared to ETH, storing your assets off wallet. Like what happens if Topshot goes down, like their servers go down,
Yeah.
right now, like that's a real concern. And if you're CryptoPunk or your Hashmask or something else, like you can get it and get at it regardless of where you bought it and what marketplace that you purchased it through. I know that it's part of the big selling point of Flow is that the application of it, right? Like the way to build on it is designed to make it a lot more user friendly in terms of being able to manipulate it and build out these consumer products on top of it. But that technology is newish and they need to figure it out in a way that allows for and is truly sort of, in the principled way of like decentralized blockchain, actually decentralized, because right now it's not. And I don't think people realize that, and nor do they care about it. But that's something that I think could be like, if they don't get that right, independent of what they do with the pack drops, if they get these other things wrong, or they don't figure it out quickly enough, that people will move on to the thing that is the like really well realized version of this. But I do think that their license that they have with the NBA is gold, like it's gold plated, right? That's I think that very specific piece of tech or like asset that they have, like the capability to do that and mint from the NBA's product, and the deal that they have with the Players Association and everything is a huge leg up on anything else that might sort of be at the cross section of this space. So I think wearing my wizard hat, I think they figure it out, or they figure it out in a way that that most people wouldn't care about anything that's broken. Like most people, like the standard regular Joe consumer might not care. Some of the NFT people might move on if there's concerns with some of this interoperability stuff. But like if you're just Joe Schmo, whatever, like you might not care because you're not technologically literate in ETH blockchain. Like that's okay. And that's part of the allure of this, is that you don't have to be. You can just swipe your credit card and be done with it. But I think that what I see is if they can start to turn, or if they figure out the technical issues with the pack drops, they can get to that consistent like marketplace stasis of EV negative packs and like readily available things, that when they turn and I mentioned this before, when they turn the faucet back on for marketing, which they have essentially turned off for a month, like it's not gonna be a faucet, it's gonna be a fire hose. Because it's how many of these player collaborations other than Tyler Hero do they have like lined up and ready to rock? How many things can they key off of All-Star? How many things can they key off of with the playoffs? How many things can they key off of with partner relationships? The second that they start broadcasting this stuff widely on podcasts, The Ringer and Barstool and insert name of any podcast network here, you're going to get this massive influx of people that may have tangentially heard of it, but like now are hearing it constantly. And you're going to get this flood of people in. And if they can do that before the playoffs, I think it's going to go, whew. If they can't, I think they need to capture it at the beginning of the next season. But like the fervor and excitement that playoff basketball brings, especially at that point in time in the calendar, I think that they like, and they're probably trying their best to get that to that point, that like it's not a 12 or 24 or 36 month thing. It's like, can they get this right in the next 3 months? And if they can, then like there's too many fans, there's too many, people that are 20 to 50 that have expendable income or other assets that they would love to throw into this type of thing if they felt it was safe and a good investment and fun, like, and it wasn't a slog to try and get through, and you didn't have to be an expert to try and navigate some of this stuff. Like if they make it really easy and the technical problems are gone, like 3 months, I tell my friends, like I could see it 5x, like in terms of user base, I could see it a quarter of a million people at the end of the season, no problem, at least, if not 500,000.
I'm on that train with you. I when I listen to you talking, it's different because I've seen you on the other podcasts and you're very animated and it's a lot more I think our podcast is a little bit more like nuts and bolts.
Sure.
It's kind of cool to like really kind of get into your head. But when I hear you talk, and you mentioned like the PlungeFather comes from like your group of guys,
Sure.
Fantasy. Are you a poker player?
Not a very good one. There's a bunch of guys that are good poker players in that group. I've only taken money off of them a handful of times at the beginning of quarantine when we were playing some like, nine high and some hold'em games with maybe a 6 top, but not a particularly good one.
but do you do daily sports fantasy or just
not really
just regular fantasy stuff?
Yeah, it's so this group of guys, like most of my fantasy stuff is, or at least other than standard fantasy football stuff, we have like a decathlon basically of fantasy events that we've probably made up our own format for 6 or 8 of them, and then the other 6 or 8 are the bracket challenge for the NCAA tournament, or I don't know. Have you ever heard of the Jerome?
No.
Okay, so it's some guy runs it off of Twitter. It's the Jerome, and you pick every champion of all 30-something college or men's basketball conference tournaments.
Oh, okay.
And there's some formatting stuff there. Right now, like literally tomorrow, we're kicking off the UEFA Champions League round of 16 knockout round thing. So like everybody gets, for every game, there's like 4 games or 2 games tomorrow, 2 games Wednesday in the round of 16. So you bet like, what's the 3-way money line? What's the goal over underline? There's like 5 bets, hypothetical $100 for each person. And like, it's just like, we come up with these Google forms to make it work so that we can, it's basically like crowning the overall, who's the best at fantasy stuff throughout the whole year. Yeah, so it's a lot of that. It's a lot of like custom stuff, but I don't do the DFS stuff. I don't play poker. Like the most of the money that I'm wagering is peer-to-peer stuff in that group. I'm like, I bet you $50 that this Killian Hayes is over $70 at the end of the week. And then they Venmo me when I'm right. So
Linux always loses on those bets between us, but he always wins on the mint bets. I can never predict how many cards are going to be minted but I've predicted
yeah, it's tough.
I predicted doubles in prices, so we're good balance. The reason I bring up poker and just fantasy is you do have a very analytical brain, and the casual person that comes to this, is not thinking. I used to be a sports anchor, and I never bet on sports because I had the inside information on the teams that I covered, and I could never make the right bet. Like, I remember covering Clemson and knowing like Charlie Whitehurst, the quarterback back then years ago. You probably actually know him. He was a Green Bay guy, or you heard of him. Like he had like a tweaked knee, and like they didn't release it. And I was like, oh man, I'll bet the house on Clemson losing against Georgia, and they would win by like 30. And it's just people think that they know sports, they think they know basketball, and they think it translates. But there's a certain kind of brain. Same thing, like Lennox and I both have a background in poker. I personally was a poker commentator and professional poker player for years, and I tackle TopShot the same way as far as poker. However, as a poker player, I was what's called a tight, aggressive player. So when I had the goods, I was trying to get the money. Yeah. With this, it's a different animal. When the Luka dropped the thing, I bought one right away for like $1,100.
Smart man.
Well, no, because it started tanking. It got down to like 700, and I was like, "What did I do?"
No, you made a good bet. You just didn't know it yet.
Right, and so that's me forgetting like my background in analytics and poker and being like, "No, ride it out. Like, don't be." But it's funny because TopShot's such. I mean, you've seen it in the weeks. Like you can make a bet basically, and the fact that like 3 days later you didn't double your money, and you're thinking, "What? This was a terrible investment," and you just have to kind of wait it out,
Yeah, and there's, I think one of the big differences between poker as a concept and betting on poker and everything is like what the permutations of the things that are going to happen are on the table.
Yeah.
And you're making very calculated risks, right? Very calculated, down to like the 0.01 percentage point.
Mm-hmm.
I know that these things and the variables of the things that you can't account for are personal behavior, right? Like the other person's capability to make you think and do something different than what a particular circumstance might have you do otherwise, right? Whether it's the way that they're playing, whether or not they're tight or whether or not they're loose, and how they're approaching the particular thing. But with this, there's so much information that is not available to us, and there's so much. It's not even with stock prices or like the stock market in general, you have more information. You have balance sheets. You have an understanding of like, are these things, and whether or not there might be news relative to like a positive return on a quarterly earnings sheet or something like that. But there's so very little of that actively informs and influences the market. And a really good example of this is something that I messed up early on, which I thought like, okay, I made a bet on a couple moments that like just didn't work out at all. And part of it had to do with like how kind of bumped up it was. But I was like, the Celtics are playing the Lakers on Saturday night. And I'm like, you know what? That's like national exposure, right? The Lakers, everybody's watching them. I'm going to buy a Jason Tatum and a couple Kembas to see if they get a pop, and I'll sell them after the game. Nothing. Not at all. Like, not at all. Like, there was zero sales around the game. And it's like, you might think that with more attention, so, it's a logical conclusion that you might draw, like, oh, more people care about this thing. And in certain circumstances, performance on the court does in fact influence and affect something that's happening on the marketplace, like the Fred VanVleet 50 burger, right? Like, but then everything tapered right off. Like, it was cool while it lasted, but like right back down, or mostly back down. Like it may not be to the same level that it was exactly, but it's all these little blips. So unless you're able to trade it really, really quickly and capitalize on something like that, like let's say in the middle of the game and sell it immediately after, there's not a whole lot of staying power for that type of stuff. So, what that sort of spoke to me and was like, okay, maybe it's not about that. And it doesn't have to be about whether or not you know basketball, because I don't really that well. I've watched more games this year in the last 4 weeks than I have ever, like in my adult life, because I'm sort of interested in it now. And I'm like, oh, I'm seeing these guys. I'm like, okay, that's just kind of cool. Like I would like to watch and understand why the Jazz are playing so well right now. Like, and understand, be able to have informed conversations about it. Because I wasn't able to before, because I didn't pay enough attention other than the playoffs. Because we do a fantasy event around the playoffs where you you pick your players and so I only cared mostly about the playoff teams. But it's sort of interesting that like so many people are wading through this like absolute barren wasteland of like very little information and trying their best to pull as much information from everywhere that they can, which is part of the reason that like people are sucking up everything that's coming out of content creators, right? Is because there's just no place to go for it. Right. And other than Twitter. And hopefully, like, if you can navigate the discords, like good luck. Yeah. But you get this stuff sort of presented to you in a way, and you start to develop trust, or at least a familiarity with the voices of the people that are putting things out there, and it starts to help inform the decisions you make. The more data that you have, the more informed decisions that you can make. If they're going to be good and strong informed decisions, who knows, right? Like, nobody can predict the next time that a Gary Vee or Barstool Sports, Dave Portnoy, or whoever else is going to just like turn something on. We can prepare ourselves, roughly speaking, to like be like what's going to take off when something like that happens, which is why I'm on a couple of these like superstar moments so hard, and I'm bitching at people that are selling them. Is like, what are the people that are going to buy when they come in, right? Like, independent of what this is going to do. Like, if it was just the people that we had right here, it might not go anywhere. But like, double that with all the new people. What was the first thing that you looked for when you caught on the site, other than a pack? Right. Like, that's the same dynamic that's going to happen time and time again. So keep that in mind as you're kind of making these choices. That's kind of the way
you say that. I look at Star Stock. So to me, Star Stock is kind of like the online day trading, physical card marketplace. And I find it to be very much influenced by games and performances and things of that nature. And you look at the Top Shop, just like you eloquently said a few moments ago, and I don't think that dynamic exists just yet. And I think it's because we are small, because we don't have that many people in the space. But I would imagine as the Top Shop community gets bigger and larger, I think those large games will kind of influence price, maybe 15% after this game or 20% or that kind of thing. I think that'll become more commonplace in the future.
I think it'll also become more commonplace when there is a much more diversified ownership of these things. In a lot of ways, some of the like premium moments, the things that are already there, like there's so much of them and so many of them that are stockpiled by, fewer hands. So, and if those people don't follow basketball, like then those things don't affect those things. So like, I think as the diversification of base cool cats, like, theoretically, every single one of these second drop cool cats is going to go to an individual, right? Like, maybe a handful are going to be able to get 2 packs, but for the most part, all of them are going to go to single people. And like, that's a much different dynamic than someone could snag 50 of them and then like figure it out from there. So I think there's going to be a lot more like, for lack of a better term, like rational market dynamics when this stuff happens. Everything is rational. I hate using that term because like looking at cool cats economics from the first drop is like, it doesn't make any sense. Like everybody just saw the shiny thing and they're like, yep, that's the thing that we're going to go for. And I think we need to take that like the philosophy and like the psychological element of this into like really, that's what we can learn from that, is that like there's a very psychological connection to some of this stuff that doesn't make sense, at least maybe like supply and demand wise, but like it makes sense because that's the focus. So we have to keep that in mind. But it's not as easy as saying, these people can control it and these people can't. But I agree with you. I think hopefully, I would love for that to be the case, that like the rising stock and falling of stock, or value relatively speaking, or demand relatively speaking, could be informed by like a national stage performance that was really hot. Julius Randle, what do you put up, like 40 today? Like, absolutely. I would love if the Julius Randle cool cat, like that I just got like an hour ago, I would love if that like became the cool thing because he dropped 40, right? Like that would be cool. But at least so far, I haven't seen anything other than those like really quick pops for guys like Fred VanVleet or whoever else has had a big game in the last couple weeks. Yeah. I think Booker hit a game winner or something like that. And they have these like little blips, but then things kind of come back down.
It'd also be nice to be rewarded for, let's say that you are stalking Julius Randle and you know that he has a favorable schedule coming up for the next 3 or 4 games. I
think your audio cut out.
Oh, yeah.
Can you hear me?
So
yeah, we're good.
Yeah, so you cut off when you were saying, like, say you do have Julius Randle stock and he has a good schedule coming up. That's where it cut off.
Just speaking to being able to get compensated for doing your homework and taking that gamble, an educated gamble from looking at the information that may pop up.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. That's it would be cool that the edge like actually played out. And I think some of that in that dynamic and the gamification of this is not necessarily going to come from like gains and losses on the marketplace. It's going to come from what it looks like when there's a hardcore app, or that there's more fantasy related DFS type stuff that you can utilize your moments for. We're going to see some of that where like I own a Julius Randle and I can use that Julius Randle in this game to help me earn whatever else it is, whether it's a prize moment or whatever. So I think there will be some utility with this beyond just like the utility of a market increase in the low floor price of a particular sale. There's going to be like value in having not just the star players, but the players that are good for and that are playing really well. In addition to that, I think there's going to be some of that. So when that happens, though, it's going to be the big sale was, or one of the first big sales was a guy like Bales from oh gosh, I don't even know what daily fantasy group he's with, but like Peter Gent. Yeah, Fantasy Labs. And Peter Jennings with Action Network and some of these other guys and all these DFS guys that are sort of here and around the space, like if some of those guys have an edge now, like if it starts to become that you get compensated well for your performance relative to daily fantasy of your moments, like they're going to be even better because they already have some of that analytics and like performance-based stuff, baked in. Like they know it, they breathe it, they live it, and I don't, right? So like I'll be at a disadvantage at that, but hopefully I can learn, and I'm like excited for that, like this utility outside of just does it gain or lose me money on a fake internet dollars basis. Like, can I do something with it?
Well, Pete, man, we've flown through an hour, and I know it's a little late for you guys on the Midwest. I wanted to just kind of finish out the show. We're definitely going to have you back on. I could keep, me and Lennox talk all the time.
Yeah, anytime.
All of our phone conversations, it's probably have a 4-hour show every day. But I love how you ask all the questions to Wade. It seems like you're the king of AMAs. So before we go, like what are your 2 favorite questions? And me and Lennox will answer them, but you got to answer them too, and we'll get you out on that.
Okay. Oh gosh. Okay. So I think well, I'm going to ask this to Jason. And so this is not a Lennox question. This is a Jason question. So if I gave you a year and I paid you like a reasonable salary, what sport would you have the greatest chance of going pro in if you like trained nonstop for that thing? You could play at the professional level. Is it basketball?
Don't laugh, Lennox. I was a really good basketball player. I actually, I picked the wrong sport. I should have played soccer. I had the scoring record when my senior year of high school, and I was like all region or something.
Okay.
So if I had actually put as much effort into soccer as I did basketball, like I would have most likely gotten an athletic scholarship for soccer. So I would say I'd play, but probably like be lucky to be on the MLS. No Europe or
yeah. Yeah, I think it'd be pretty tough at 39 to spend a year and then just happen to be a professional soccer player. So yeah, that's always a good question that I ask folks. That's part of our sort of like initiation questions that we always ask. And then Lennox, I think, let's say that you're in a room of you go out to dinner with your wife at a standard restaurant, and it's similar people of your socioeconomic class, demographic in Lincoln Park, let's say, and there's 200 people in that restaurant. What would be the one thing that you are 100% confident that you would be better at than every single person in that room, even if you never met them?
One thing that I would be better at the folks in my socioeconomic class here in Lincoln Park.
No, so just like 200 random people, put them in a room. You're confident that you are better than them at this one thing. And you're really confident in that there's not just some random person that is better than you at that particular thing.
Random fact, when I was a kid, I was super into herpetology. So I bred all kind of reptiles, snakes, and color and what have you. So if it came down to a Jeopardy selection in herpetology and answering questions in that sector, I'm nailing it. I'm definitely beating everybody in that category. So if you ever need to phone a friend, reptiles, amphibians, ichthyology, fish, I'm your guy. Give me a call.
I think that's an exceptionally good answer, because that's something that like not a lot of people know, probably. So the chances of you running into someone in a random restaurant in the middle of Lincoln Park that also that would know more about herpetology than you is probably a pretty low shot. So I love that answer.
See, his intelligent answer, mine was, I can solve a Rubik's Cube probably faster than anybody else. But it's like, I have no utility for being able to solve a Rubik's Cube. And meanwhile, Lennox is over here saving people from snake bites. So
So well, when we asked that question, it's funny. So like when someone comes into the Plungers, which is this group that I'm in, like, it's always friends of friends. So like bring someone in. We ask that question, like, what are you better at than everybody in here? What are you 100% sure that you're better at? And it always brings up like really hilarious conversations. And some guy said, I'm better at Mario Kart than everybody in here. Little did he know that one of the guys in the group is like literally top 50 Mario Kart record holder, like in the world, like has published like Mario Kart, like,
Wow.
like speed records for Koopa Troopa Beach type of shit.
Oh my goodness.
And it was like the first thing he said is like, I will beat the shit out of everybody in here at Mario Kart. And everyone was just like, ha, ha, ha. Like, no way you would. This guy would smoke you. Like, so it's one of those things like you got to be really careful about that type of stuff. So anyway, hopefully you don't run into any other herpetology people out and about, and you can just flex your herpetology muscles all over.
There we go.
That's great. Well, that's going to do it for Top Shot NFT this night. A cool cat night. We got the packs dropped. They're still going on as we're wrapping this up.
Well, you need to go crack your pack.
Yeah,
now's as good a time as any to.
I'm so bad about waiting to like record it and stuff. I click open, and so
patience is not my strong suit either.
Yeah. So for Linux, I'm Jason. Thank you so much, PlungeFather. We will definitely have you on in the future.
Sounds good.
And good luck for everyone out there for the packs. Don't forget, follow PlungeFather on Twitter. You can find him in the Discord. I'm Bar Therapist on Twitter, and I think it's TopShot Pod or something like that on the Discord. I'll put it in the notes. And if you guys need anything, that's what we're here. We're just trying to, we're not trying to give financial advice. We're just trying to give out some quality content, get behind the curtain, get to see who the man behind the man of the man, and that is the PlungeFather. We'll see you next time.
All right. Sounds good. Have a good one, guys.